This episode of Jackie's Groove is brought to you by Jambox. Jambox is a hands-free, breath-powered mini instrument that brings the joy of music creation to all ages and all abilities. Jambox. www.jamboxx.com.
A lot of people are quite surprised to learn that my father passed away 10 years ago, never having heard me perform live.
Really?
Never. And my mother has on one occasion, many, many years ago. It was foreign to them, so I was never given any encouragement to do this, ever.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. Hey guys, this is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Intertalk Media, your connect to all things music. Hey, I'm not going to be redundant, but I'm going to tell you that I'm actually proud and privileged today because I'm a fan of this gentleman. We don't know each other, but what he's doing now is he's fronting for my good friends that I've known for 30 years, and the group is called Chicago, the rock and roll band with horns, so to speak. And the gentleman we're talking about is the new lead singer. And I'm going to kind of qualify the fact that of all of the players that I've known throughout the years with Chicago, this is the first man to ever front the band without an instrument in his hand other than his own voice. And it's we're going to talk more about that. We're going to get in depth with my guest and about his life in Canada and his aha moments as the new front man for the group Chicago. So with that said, guys, welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, Mr. Neil Donell. Neil, welcome, my brother.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks for accepting the invitation. Let's start out by saying, how is everything in Canada today? What's going on in this our sisters and brothers to the north?
Well, the good news is spring has finally arrived. It was a very, very long winter, and we finally started getting some warmer temperatures about 2 weeks ago. So the wait is over.
Now, how does that
the best news here?
The temperature, between traveling from Canada to the rest of the parts of the world, I know you were in Vegas in January of this year. How does that have any, or if any, effect at all on your voice itself? How do you keep your voice healthy during those transitions of weather?
Well, one of the things that's important, I guess the primary thing is hydration.
Right.
In February and a good part of March, we were touring at a bunch of different cities. Actually, at one point for about 2 weeks, I don't think we fell below about 2,000 feet above sea level. So the elevation is harder on some than others, but you do have to really be cognizant of how much water you're taking in, because most times you're not taking in enough. So, and I'm a kind of a fitness guy and a yoga person, and I work out every single day. So that kind of keeps me on top of my game.
And it's and you said again, spring has sprung. Here in Southern California, we're facing clouds, and it says it's the old Tony song. It never rains in Southern California. We had a little drizzle last night, but we didn't get flooded, so we're good and we're good to go. So let's bring the sunshine out in the studio. Neil, you joined the band Chicago in January of this year, and it was crazy because when Tris, who I just spoke to a day and a half ago, sends his well wishes to you and the band. When he left the group along with Jeff Coffey, it was a very weird situation because my phone blew up, for the lack of a better word, wanted to know what I've heard. Do I know this, that, and the other? and no, I don't know anything. And I was asked to reach out to a couple players out there that would suit the bill, for the lack of a better word, to front Chicago. And then at the last minute, on the 11th hour, they reached out to Donell. So, Neil, when you got that call, where were you, man? What were you doing when that call came into you?
Well, I guess I should go back a little further than that. And my first contact with the band, which actually happened in December of 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, I was sitting in a restaurant on Broadway. I was in New York for a few days. It was one of those situations where this contact kind of came out of the blue, and initially I didn't know whether or not it was real or not. And later on, I had another correspondence, and the following day, a phone call, and spent about an hour on the phone with somebody within the organization. And that led to my spending some time with the guys a few months later in Ohio. And the relationship sort of developed. Nothing came of that. We just became friends, and I spent a little bit of time on stage and with them. And then I guess it was the fall of that year, now it's into 2016, the guys were doing some Canadian dates, and they asked me if I wanted to come in and guest with them. And I said, sure, yeah. So I did 4 guest spots, I think, over the course of 4 or 5 days. Right. And it went great. And I just, formed more of a friendship and a relationship with the guys in the group, And then, Jeff was with the group at that point in time. And
Jeff Coffey.
Then yes, Jeff Coffey. And then last fall, I think maybe it was November, maybe late October, November. I was just sitting here in my living room in Toronto, and the phone rang, and things were undergoing changes again. And I was posed if I wanted to come and sing with the band. So, and I guess I should make one small correction. I am now playing guitar on a few tunes.
Oh, you are?
And yes, and I'm sort of incorporating a little bit more of that as time goes forward. So I think I'm playing on 3 tunes right now. And
you want to show those tunes?
I will play Beginnings.
Very cool.
Then I'm also playing on If You Leave Me Now.
Beautiful.
And a song off Chicago too called Where Do We Go From Here?
Yeah, man. And when I said, in fact, if you guys all out there, the listeners worldwide, when you get a chance, go to YouTube and type in Neil, Neil, Donell, Donell, and you'll see when Jimmy Pankow, the trombone player from Chicago, introduces you on stage. I was nervous. I mean, for you, all the years that you've sung Chicago tunes in your own, lack of a better word, tribute band for Chicago, and to find yourself thrust into the likes of, and on that video, Jeff Coffey's up by Lou Pedrini. I don't know where actually that was it. Jeff was up there, and you sang Inspiration, and I think you did another tune too. And I got to tell you, Neil, I was blown away. If I hear one more time from anybody out there saying, well, there's never going to be another Peter Cetera. Well, when Mr. and Mrs. Cetera, gave birth to that boy, that's the only one out there. And I don't think Chicago has really gone after anybody who sounds like Peter, because nobody sounds like Peter. Nobody sounds like Neil. Nobody sounds like Jason. And we all bring our influx to that band. Now, how many times have you got $1 for every time somebody said, wow, you really sound like Peter Cetera? How wealthy would you be? Well, yeah,
the interesting thing is, I came from the perception is that I'm a guy from a tribute band, and of course that's right. True. I spent 7 or 8 years with a band that was doing Chicago songs, Chicago music. But my background, and I did that and got invited to be in that band and decided to do it. Right. Because they wanted me to be all 3 guys. In that band, I was doing the vocals of Terry, mm-hmm. and Robert and Peter. But my background really is studio work. I've made my living in recording studios for close to 30 years.
Well, and may I interject by saying the most recorded voice in Canada?
Yes, yeah, that's the label that I've been given, and it's because I've done, kind of north of 10,000 recording sessions now in my career. So, I've literally covered the voices of probably a couple of hundred other different people. In fact, I just got back from Orlando, from Florida, a couple of days ago. I was there doing a show with the Orlando Philharmonic where I was Sting in that show.
Really?
Yes, and 2 weeks before that, I was in Virginia doing a show with a symphony orchestra in Virginia where I was Steve Perry.
Too bad you can't be chosen from voices that are difficult to emulate anyways. I mean, and speaking of Sting, Sting's new album out right now with Shaggy. It's called 44-857, which is 44, the country code of the UK, and 857, the country code of, or the zip code of Jamaica. Neil, I highly recommend it if you haven't heard it already. I mean, it's amazing.
I heard a cut off. It's fantastic. Well, I don't know what
great combination. When you're out covering quality work such as Sting and such as Steve Perry, let's talk about Sting. That's one way, but Steve Perry, my good buddy of mine, Arnel Panada, is the fronting the Journey, for the last 10 years, 15 years, 10 years, and yes, doing a great job. How does Neil Donell go in, or how do you have the balls to walk in and sing anything Steve Perry, for those who aren't familiar with Neil's voice?
Well, I get these phone calls, and people will ask me, can you be this person, or do this voice, or do that voice? And I just say yes, and I've kind of never been stopped. You kind of got to put your own stamp on it. You don't want to just be approach it as a mimic or a karaoke thing almost. So I do tend to interpret a little bit, but these shows that I've been doing are with they're arranged for a full symphony orchestra, and then there's a band with it. So the audiences appreciate when you mark certain sections of the song that they're familiar with, that are really quite stamped on their consciousness. So it's a lot of fun for me. The Steve Perry stuff went from, Love and Touch and Squeeze right to his Oh Sherry, a lot of his solo stuff. And the same thing with the Sting show. We were doing some of the early Police things and quite a few of Sting's solo stuff. So I love doing that kind of thing. In another show, I'm everybody from Joe Cocker to, there's one show I do with a symphony that, it's called Shaken Not Stirred. It's all the James Bond themes.
I love it.
So a girl and I front that. Yeah, and I'm everybody from Paul McCartney to Louis Armstrong to Tom Jones and now Sam Smith and Chris Cornell. So I've always enjoyed doing that kind of thing. So that's more my background than being in tribute bands. Like I said, I joined the tribute band because I was asked to, and they were all friends of mine. And I really. If somebody had said, just come and do the voice of one of these people, of Peter Cetera, for example, I would have probably passed on it, because it was the variety that was appealing to me. And I knew the book, and it was fun.
It's amazing to me when I think about, your aha moment of joining Chicago as the full-time frontman. But let's step all the way back. Let's talk about your childhood, if we can. And to get deep, if you will, do you remember what song it was that you were exposed to, that it was brought to the table? And at what age was it when you said, wow, I really like that music, and then you switched it up to, I really want to sing and produce and write music like that? What song, what artist was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. It was the Beatles.
Really?
Initially. Yeah, it was the Beatles initially. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I just remember as a little kid, kind of throwing a tantrum in the back seat of the car. And I remember this. I think I was, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years old, something like that. And there was just something about that music, that my parents got me a guitar because I threw a fit, and it kind of started from there. Yeah, it kind of started from there, and then. I'm sorry?
I wanted to jump in here. Would you say that your parents were the encouragement in your fledgling career, or was there somebody else that kind of, held your hand and became a mentor and gave you a positive attitude towards what you were going to do?
Actually, it's quite to the contrary. In fact, a lot of people are quite surprised to learn that my father passed away 10 years ago, having heard me perform live. Really? Never. And my mother has on one occasion, many, many years ago. It was foreign to them. So I was never given any encouragement to do this, ever. In fact, I was discouraged from doing it.
Who discouraged you?
My father.
Because of what?
Well, he didn't understand. He was a French Canadian police officer.
Yeah.
And he knew nothing about, there's no history anywhere in the family of anybody being in the entertainment business or, anything outside of blue collar or white collar sort of mainstream 9-to-5 jobs. And even myself, when I was growing up and before I went to university, I worked for a while. I worked in the mines for a while, underground. Crazy. I did a lot of jobs like that. But for some reason, music was a thread that ran through my whole life. When I was in grade school, 11 or 12 years of age, right. I took it upon myself to audition for the school choir. There was only me and one other boy in about a 40-voice choir. And I don't know why I wanted to do that. And you had to audition because they had to know that you could hear pitch and intervals. And I got in the choir. And then when I was in high school, I was asked to join a band because somebody heard me singing along with the radio in a car one day.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it sort of just continued to be that thread that ran through everything I did. But no, there was no music anywhere.
So the music, but obviously being in your DNA. But think back for a second. What were the struggle? What struggles did you find yourself facing? Coming up in the industry itself, did you find it, was it easy to overcome? Was it hard to overcome to achieve the level of fame that you're at right now? Do you want to share that with the younger listeners out there?
Well, I've tried to spin this whole thing from the very beginning, because there's been some controversy around it. And, change is something that a lot of people don't embrace easily. So I've had to, I sort of understand that very, very well. But I've been telling people, students and people who I've been interacting with, and this precedes, my interactions with Chicago.
Right.
You never know who's watching or listening, especially now. So really always, I refer to it as honoring your gift. Mm. If you're fortunate enough to find something that you're good at, you have a natural ability for, natural inclination for, it's kind of up to you to develop it and do something with it. But, you have to just, it really boils down to one essential question. How bad do you want it?
How bad do you want it? How bad does Neil want it?
I've always wanted to be the very best that I could possibly be at what I do. So my whole life kind of revolves around what I do for a living. This is why I gave up alcohol. I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 16 years.
God bless you.
I'm probably fitter now than I've ever been in my entire life. It's a very holistic approach to singing well and consistently, performing well. You really have to, I always think back to Celine Dion. She came off stage in her 20s, and without a voice one particular evening, and right. kind of was in panic mode. And she went to see a voice doctor, a coach in New York City who's deceased now, who apparently his clients were John F. Kennedy and Walter Cronkite at one time. Not just people who sing, but people who use their voice for a living.
Absolutely.
And he told her a few things, what she needed to do to prevent this from happening again. Of course, her voice did return. But he essentially said to her, everything you do in your life now, if you want to work and perform at a certain level, all those other hours, those other 21 or 22 hours of your day, all of those other hours are going to be about those 2 hours you're going to spend on stage. Everything has to be factored into it. You know, how much rest you get, your frame of mind, how fit you are. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah. You know, it's really amazing because when I look back at the situation when you were chosen and elected to be the front man of Chicago in January, February, I was noticing a lot of your Facebook posts, and I loved them because the energy that was exuding from what I was reading, your positive vibe, period. You know, for me, prior. Yes, I was stalking you and going back to the days before Chicago and trying to get a little backstory on that. But it seemed to be a very positive person. But at the same time, too, you come across as, for the lack of a better term, blown away that you are now fronting one of my favorite bands, 51 years celebration of Chicago, out there killing it. And the thing I love about it, Neil, and I'm going to be very honest with you, you fit really in good with the band because there's nobody in that band that's up front other than Ray that's playing on sax, but Jimmy and Robert and Lee. You know, we're all long in the tooth, and it's so good to see a guy that's in our age bracket that is actually up there and fitting right in. I mean, do you feel comfortable when you're up there singing these great songs? And then now that you're implementing guitar, how much trepidation? I don't know your ability to play guitar. I'm going to assume it's going to be great because you're not going to be playing with the guys. But are you finding yourself, again, blown away on the next level? Now you're playing not only your voice, but guitar with these great players?
You know, I guess on some levels, yeah, it's almost surreal, you know, at different points. But, you know, there is an ease to being around these guys. You know, the wonderful thing that I've discovered about Chicago is it's a family. You know, and once they want you to be in the family, they ask you to be a member of the family. You are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the vibe on stage, the vibe off stage, it's just this, you know, that's what surprised me in such a positive way. I mean, these are great guys. These are, you know, the first guy of the principals, we refer to them, which is Robert and Jimmy and Lee, that mm-hmm. I sort of got to be friends with, was Lee. And that was in Ohio a couple of years ago. And I just like the guys. I mean, they're just really good guys. Every single one of them, you know, they're all very individual and very unique. And it's a lot of fun. And everybody's so pumped up on the side of the stage, you know, when they're introducing us and the music comes on. And by the time you get out on stage, your adrenaline is just, you know, peaking. And it doesn't feel like, you know, it doesn't feel intimidating, or I'm not nervous with it. It's just there's a lot of genuine smiling going on between us on stage. I mean, that's an incredible thing after that many years, that they still have this joy and passion and enthusiasm for this music. And of course, the audiences are just fantastic.
And speaking of the audiences, Neil, when you came out for the first time and you were firmly planted as the new frontman for Chicago, what, if any, discernment, were there any obstacles that you had to face with the staunch Chicago fans, for the lack of a better word, when you started singing that music? Did you find any adversity, any adverse people itself? Did you hear anything negative at all?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, you know, I've tried to sort of avoid that and don't pay much attention to it. Well, I just don't spend a lot of time. You know, people find a way, unfortunately, sometimes to get to you. And I have to be honest with you. I have gotten some unpleasant messages from people.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's
just the shit that Wally went through when Wally transitioned from percussion. Wilfredo Reyes Jr. From percussion for 7 years with the band, and when he moved forward and moved to his right and took over the drum throne of a gentleman by the name of Tris Imboden, who occupied that throne for 29 years, going on 30 years. Yep. And again, my phone blew up. What's going on? Did you hear that Tris is leaving? Did you hear that Tris has left? Did you hear, and so I sit back in confidentiality and I keep my mouth shut and I don't say things. There's a plethora of stuff online right now. There's these great Chicago aficionados who don't know shit. When they're out there spewing all their crap online right now about what the deal is. It's the fact that Jeff Coffey and Tris didn't want to travel 150 days out of the year, but then they find out that the real truth is that Chicago's actually traveling 270 days out of the year, which is a lot. It's a falsification. Chicago is blessed to work after 51 years, never missing a year of touring. And as well as I do, there's people out there you're never going to be able to satisfy. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't like Neil and if you don't like the transition and the trajectory of Chicago, then guess what? Move along. There's plenty other new faces and new listeners to Chicago. And when we come back on the next segment, I can't believe we've already blown by this, but I do want to find out. I love Chicago, and got great stories with Robert, and I had a great interview with Lee Loughnane, and I asked Lee a question. After 50 years, Lee, why? You know what Lee's response was to me? Because I love it. We love it. And the fact that, and you got to love that itself. And I want to find out too, don't answer it now, but I want to find out what bus you're on. And for those staunch Chicago fans, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. What bus are you traveling on? 1, 2, or 3? And we'll get more back into that. And we'll find out if you guys are going to pick up the fun of, what's the word I want to use? FaceTiming or Facebook Live when you guys are on the buses, or has that changed also? So when we come back on the next segment, we're going to get more involved with Lee Donell and did I say Lee? Neil Donell and Jackie's Groove, Jackie Bertoni, and it's Intertalk Radio and Intertalk Media. You're connected to all things music. I'm looking at a plethora of notes, Neil, and I've got 1,000 questions and only another half hour to ask them. So when we get back, we'll talk about it. And remember now, Neil, this is my show, but this is your episode. So whatever you do want to talk about, and it's also about Neil Donell, your own professional and career away from Chicago. Just because you are now in Chicago does not mean you sideline what you've got. You just augment your scheduling. And we're going to talk more about that and where we're going to be able to find you away from Chicago and when with Chicago and when you come off your hiatus. So again, guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Media, connect to all things music. We'll come back on the short break. We'll be right back with my in-studio guest, new lead vocalist with Chicago, Neil Donell. Neil, stay tuned.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Hey, this is Brian Culbertson, and you're listening to my dude, Jackie Bertoni, on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jackie Bertoni. Jackie's Groove brought to you by Intertalk Media. You connect to all things music. I'm talking and I'm sitting here with a Bible of questions for Neil Donell, from the new lead singer from the rock group with horns called Chicago. But Neil, before I get involved with that, I'm all about my team and the strides that we're achieving and the goals that we're achieving in a 2-year period. And I'm so thankful for my team. You've already spoken to Megan, who is my producer. She's the one that brought you in, and along with Cedric, and then of course Paul, who's on the COO and also the engineer that's on the board today, who's navigating this crazy ship, along with the CEO of our corporation, Florentino Buenaventura, a gentleman I've known for the past 3 years. But he's been like my brother from that. And he's a big fan of Chicago also. And he asked if he can come on and say hi to you. I said, of course. Do I have a choice? So with that said, Neil, do me a favor. Say hi to Florentino. And Florentino, please say hi to Neil.
Hey, Neil. What's going on, buddy?
How are you? Nice to speak with you.
Definitely nice to speak with you, man. Congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you so much. I'm having a great time. They're great guys, and of course the music is out of this world.
Yeah, we've talked to a couple of them now and then. No, it's an amazing band. Bit of influence on me.
Oh yeah.
Go all the way back to my grade school playing Chicago tunes in band. So it's just kind of fun stuff, man.
I'm there with you. I was there with you.
Definitely, brother. So I think Jackie may have alluded to this, but we created this network to spotlight cats like yourself who've been doing this for quite some time and have really made it, impact on the industry and kind of what we call the movers and shakers of the business, man. And we recognize that quite often, it's the modern pop kids that get all the spotlight, and we felt that we needed to share that authentic, and not that they're not authentic, but we really feel that guys have been doing this 51 years with Chicago. We wanted to make sure that people know what it's all about. So with that said, man, this segment is all about how we can stalk you, how we can, how we can just track you down. No, I'm just joking. How we can find out more about you, brother. So do you have, your own Facebook pages? How can people get in contact with you and learn more about you?
I'm on Facebook. I have a personal page and a fan page.
Yeah.
And I also have a website, and it's the website is just neildonell.com. And Donell is one N and two L's. That's sometimes people get confused with that, but yeah, that's an easy way to find me.
Oh, cool, very cool. Now, have you found yourself, with this day and age, social, media is, a huge part of the business. Most of the time, we didn't have to deal with that back in the day. Or do you find yourself really engaged in it, or are you someone who just lightly goes on there and but really hasn't adopted the obsessive compulsive behaviors that most people do lately with that?
Well, yeah, I kind of go in fits and starts with it. Sometimes I'm a little more active than others, but I don't spend a great deal of time there. It's fun to be in touch. Of course, a lot of people have contacted me through Facebook over the last 3 or 4 months. and I've made a lot of new friends, and a lot of those people are following my activities with the band and outside of the band, and that's a lot of fun too. In fact, the show that I was doing in Orlando last weekend, I had about 15 people who are Chicago fans and knew me from the work that I've been doing, and they made the trip to Orlando from all over the state to see this particular show. So that's awesome. A nice little fringe benefit. Yeah, it was really cool.
So do you like the more direct connection that we have now in this industry with the fans? Do you find that it's liberating, or do you find that it can be a little bit of a heavy chore?
Well, you do have to be cautious. I think that goes for just about everybody. Sure. But my experience with the people that have reached out to me has been overwhelmingly positive. Yeah. I've met a lot of really wonderful people and been welcomed with open arms, by most. So that's pretty fantastic. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the blessings, definitely, of this day and age where you're not just dealing with letters and saying hi from afar on the stage. You can find out what they find, what they love about you. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And people get a real, the fans of the band. I think they understand, the nature of the guys in the group for the most part. These are really, really good, nice, kind people. Yeah. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's a joy to be in their company on and off stage.
Definitely. I think it's a kinder, gentler industry nowadays because people are so, the transparency has to be there now because of the need to have social media. So I think that's a good way to look at it, brother. Well, hey, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much. I could talk to you for all day long. I want to let you get back with Jackie because I know it's a lot of story in a short period of time. So appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, and obviously being on the network, it's a blessing. And we wish you well on your tours out there. And as Jackie will tell you, once you've been on the show, you're part of the family, and we'll support you any way we can.
Well, that's very kind of you. I really do appreciate it very much.
Welcome, brother. Take it over, Jackie.
Okay, thank you.
We will talk to you real soon. Hey, Neil, I wanted to share something with you. I was, there's a thing that we are very, very blessed with in our industry, and it's called endorsements, where we work all of our lives to afford the best equipment. Then we get to the level of that we're able to pay for the equipment, and the equipment's given to us. Our money's no good here. Yeah. And which is always, it's just a strange dichotomy to me. But I was brought into the fold with a company called Jambox, JAMBOXX.com. And if you don't know Neil, I'll share with you, the whole band will tell you, that I'm a 22-year patient of multiple sclerosis. MS has been involved with my life. It's changed the way I've toured, or the lack of outdoor concerts and so on and so forth, but it's never really been a deterrent for my studio work. But on the days that my right arm, my right side is a little more weaker than my left side, and I feel that I can't do my best behind my congas and behind my percussion, I would get frustrated. Like anything else, is if you're walking on stage and your voice is not 100%, you know that, even though the audience may not know it. But we're not going to lie to each other. So when Jambox came to the industry, came to my network, came to Florentino, and they did their research on me being a notable percussionist in the industry for the past 30 years, but also, too, everything that's online is about famous people with MS. And, we try to do our best that we can to for the lack of those who don't have a voice. And the fact is, I'm still blessed to record and do the best recording. But when Jambox came to Florentino and said, we are a wind instrument, MIDI instrument that is played by people with ALS and people with that have become paraplegics. People have lost the usage of their hands and their feet. That Neil, basically, their mic became quiet, and they stopped playing, and depression set in. So Jambox, in the 7-year history of working out this amazing product, and Neil, I'll send you the link, but I want you to go to jambox.com, JAMBOXX.com, and get a box of Kleenex already, because it's awe-inspiring. So they came to me in the network, and they said, do you think Jackie would be we know Jackie would be an amazing ambassador because he is in the who's who of the business, and he's out there promoting all the different bands, and of course with the radio show, and the fact that he is still being able to play, but on those days, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. So I got together with Jambox to send the instrument out to me, and I got to tell you, Neil, it's amazing because everything that I can't do with my right arm, my right hand, I can now do with my mouth by blowing into this. Yeah, this wind instrument. I want all my brothers and sisters in the industry that have a name, including Neil Donell, and to check this amazing, because we all know somebody who is a musician who is handicapped.
Absolutely.
So now that they were handicapped, they are now handy capable because of Jambox. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Wow.
And I'm staring at it right now. I re-recorded a song. I have a new song out right now with Michael Paulo, great saxophone with Al Jarreau over the years, and numerous hit albums himself. I did a cover song of Elton John's "Your Song," and what I did, the new album is out, and what I did is yesterday is I pulled all my acoustic percussion out and replaced it all with Jambox percussion. And I got to tell you, Neil, I'll send that copy to you also. It turned out amazing. Yeah, you'll be hard pressed to believe that it's actually a wind instrument. So, okay, that's all I'm going to talk about. Now, what I do want to talk about, now you are walking on the stage with this group called Chicago, 51 years in the making. You are now covering these amazing tunes. You're being compared to Peter Cetera. You're being compared to Jason Sheff. You're being compared to everybody who sang with and will sing with Chicago. But when you look down at that set list that's either at your feet or attached to your mic stand or whatever it may be, is there a Chicago tune that you see that is on the set list that just puts a smile on your face ear to ear? And what song is that and why?
Well, the first one that comes to mind, of course, I love every single tune that's in the show and then some. The first one that comes to mind is question 67 and 68. There's something about that track that it's always been one of my favorites. There's a majesty to it. It's just, every night when I perform that song, it's just, I just get a thrill from doing it.
And then that song was written by Robert Ryan. That's Robert's song, isn't it?
That's right. That's one of Robert's tunes. To me, that it's such a signature song to me, of the early days, and of course it's off of the very first record. But there's just it speaks to me of the majesty of the band, of the arrangement, the vocal, the lyric, and it sounds so fantastic every single night we do it still. So, that's probably more than any other song in the show. Like I said, every single song just means something to me. It has some significance in my life. But that one in particular, just there's just something very majestic about it. That's the word that keeps coming to mind.
And I love the horn pattern on that song. I was just listening to it last night, and that upper register that you have to hit with that voice. I mean, that is just, to me, I've looked at all these other singers that have been in the band over the past 15, 20 years, and you reach that register almost effortlessly. Is it harder than it actually is to reach that for you, or is that just a walk in the park?
That's sort of in my wheelhouse pretty comfortably. Yeah, and I get such a thrill of doing it that it's just, when you're into it that much and there's that much passion in your performance, it just kind of flows out of you. You just kind of channel it. So, I've never struggled with it or had the difficulty to sing those songs. I do know that it is challenging for some people. But no, it's always been something that's, as soon as I hear the opening strains of the horns, I'm just there.
Florentine asked you a question a second ago regarding social media and how things have changed. But I want to ask you as a musician, has music technology of today changed what you do?
Not really me personally, not performance wise. Still what I do is very organic and very physical. Mm-hmm. In the same way that what the horn guys do, very, very physical, and what Wally does. I don't think that will ever change. You've got to really be good. Your technique has to get really good over the years in order to survive, and in order to be consistent. So you've really got to know what you're doing at this point in time. You can't just fly by the seat of your pants or just kind of full of piss and vinegar and expect to pull it off. It has to be. When I'm on stage singing, very rarely is it a sort of a stream of consciousness approach. Most of the time, I'm very present. Every single note that comes out of me, with few exceptions, I'm there. I'm very cognizant of my approach, and because I understand that these people that have come to the concert, the fans of the band, they're expecting to hear certain things.
Sure.
And it's up to me and all of us to some degree to give them that. When I first hooked up with the guys, when I became a member of the group in January, we were rehearsing in Los Angeles for a week, and I made it a point to go to the guys, because this is really my approach, and not only to the other guys in the band and Robert and Lee and Jimmy, but the fans too. I wanted to make them aware that I really consider this a sacred trust. Mm. I know how much these songs mean to so many people.
Absolutely.
And I take this extremely seriously. And I went to each one of the guys before we even began the rehearsals in LA, to each one of the founding members, and expressed that to them directly, just so that they knew where I was coming from and my intentions, and how grateful and how honored I was to be asked.
And it's so true, because the dichotomy and the different personalities in the band. Jimmy Pankow, he's crazy, and I mean that in a good way. He just all the energy that he exudes on stage, his energy has backstage. Robert, before a show, you'll always see Robert kind of tucked in the corner with his keyboard, getting himself ready for the show. Lee is just ear to ear smiles, and if he's out there and after your meet and greet and that wonderful little stage that you guys set up with the Chicago banner behind, and I don't know what step you're on, the first step or the second step, but to be part of that whole intro before the show begins, it's amazing, because, but I want to find out, and so do the listeners, the singers out there that love Neil Donell. What are you doing prior to walking on? Are you a talkabout? Are you shaking hands? Or do you sequester yourself in the back of the room and get your voice ready? Or is your voice ready 24/7?
It's pretty well ready to go most of the time. Yeah, I make sure that by the time I'm walking up on the stage that I've been ready for a while, and I'm just hanging off to the side of the stage with the guys. We're bumping fists. We're kind of bouncing off the walls at that point. We're pretty excited, because we know that the audience, you can feel it. It's palpable. The energy in the building, and you can just feel it. And by the time they introduce us and we walk on, I mean, it's just. And you're spot on about the guys. Jimmy is he's just a little atomic reactor there. He
is,
and he plays. It's just astonishing the level that he plays at each and every night, and his energy. It's
what's so trippy to me is, like, the last time I saw the boys was before you in San Diego, and hanging out with the guys before the show, and then Jimmy popping his head out the door, and Jimmy looks at me and goes, "Hey, Jackie boy, love the show, man." Gives a thumbs up, that thumbs up he's always giving, and then then he walked away, and then Robert said the same thing. But Lee walked up, and Lee says, "They love the show, Jackie. I love the stuff that in the promotion of you give with the band. But why haven't I been on the show yet?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Ask Peter Chevarelli that, because Peter said there's no reason why you should be interviewing. There's no need to interview the principals of the band, since you've interviewed everybody else." And Jimmy Pankow says, no, that's BS. I want to do the show. So he's reaching out to us. We're trying to figure out a schedule. Lee was amazing. You know, as I said before, I interviewed Lee 4 months ago, and just to hear, you know, from all of the struggles between his open heart surgery and being back on the road again. None of us are, you know, and I'm not going to ask this question. I'm going to ask a question. How old are you, Neil?
I'm 60.
Are you really?
Yeah.
God bless your heart. You look like $1 million. And I say that because I use the word long in the tooth. I mean, I just turned 58 a couple days ago myself. And, it's ever changing, this industry. It's not that the industry is changing every year, and it's not that it's changing every month. It seems like it's changing every day. And with that said, Florentino asked you about the influx of social media. I want to ask you myself personally, if there was a young Neil Donell coming up in the industry today with all of the roadblocks and all of the advantages in the business, would you find it harder to break in this business now because of all the advantages, or would it be more of a struggle of a young Neil coming up in the business?
I think it would be a lot tougher. I think it's really tough. You know, I coach people. I do vocal coaching and arranging on the side a little bit, and occasionally, once or twice a year, I try to hold a master class, and I try to be as positive and optimistic and encouraging as I possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, you know, there isn't much of a training ground anymore. You know, the days of where you could go and work, 5-6 nights a week, 4 weeks out of the month, you know, those days are for the most part gone. And that's where people, you know, you sort of got your chops together and you got some endurance going. And, you know, you had to go on, you know, I remember having to go on stage when I was very ill, and still, you know, you had to go and do the gig, because if you didn't, you know, nobody would get paid and people wouldn't work, and, you know, you had to suck it up and just get on with things. So, you know, some of the people that have been around for a long time, like I have, you know, I've been doing this professionally since I was 14. And I actually tell people I marvel at the fact that I can still talk, let alone sing, given what I put my voice through, you know, over the years. But you learn technique and you learn endurance and you learn what's important. And I just don't find the opportunities for that are around much anymore. And people, you know, rely on, you know, certain tools to correct things and fix things. So, you know, the organic approach kind of goes away. And, you know, I'm still a big fan of that. You know, getting up there and doing it for real, you know, every night, to me, sort of separates the wheat from the chaff. It's not easy. And like I said, you have to be very, very focused on what you're doing, you know, to pull that off night after night. But it comes from that passion that's deep within you. That's the driving force. And that's the driving force in Jimmy, Robert, and Lee. And I see it every single night. You know, you talked about, like, Lee is just one of the sweetest, nicest guys. And he's just so excited and so grateful every night to get on stage. You know, and you see it. It's just a joy to stand beside him. Man. And Robert is, to me, you know, I sent Robert a note a few weeks in. And to me, he's just the epitome of elegance on and off stage. Mm-hmm. He's a real role model to me, the way he carries himself. And, you know, he's another guy. There's just this great sense of gratitude that, you know, here we are getting to do what we love to do.
51 years.
In front of these people who are still, like Jimmy says, you know, every night, you know, he says, as long as you keep showing up, we'll keep showing up.
Absolutely.
And they're still showing up, you know, I mean, and they're just so into it and excited, and it's a love fest. It really is, for lack of a better word.
And what's really, really cool, one of my favorite venues here in San Diego and Southern California is called Humphreys in Shelter Island. And my wife and I were hanging out with the guys, and I looked over, and my wife was talking to Robert. and right before they'd walked on stage, and I went over there, and she says, listen to what Robert told me about Saturday in the Park. And it really is a true story about an ice cream vendor, an Italian ice cream vendor at Grant Park in Chicago during the summertime. And that's what the whole thing was. And she goes, is that really an Italian that you're speaking? He goes, well, I tried to say it and be phonetically as possible every night when we sing the song, but it is a part of their history. Ise nari, can you dig it? Yes, I can. I've been waiting such a long time, but she was saying in Italian exactly what the ice cream vendor had told Robert about that. So there's a section of the song that is actually Italian. It's on the original recording. So for those who and my mother-in-law said it is phonetically and it is correct in the pronunciation exactly what it was. And again, one of my favorite songs, Saturday in the Park. You think it was a 4th of July because every day I wake up and there's no dirt on top of me. It is a celebration, and just loving what you're doing with this amazing band, Neil. And again, I'm not blowing smoke up, the quintessential tuches over the phone, but I'm a fan of your voice, man. I love your voice. I'm real critical of what's out there, and I've been honored to be a big part of the induction 3 years ago for Chicago, and giving away Jason Sheff's bass that he played on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. And all the years I've had experiences with Danny Serafin, and like I said, again, with Bill Champlin, being part of the Chicago family without being a member of the band. And I also want to say congratulations to my brother Ray Islas, who's playing percussion now with Chicago. So for those who don't know, Danny Ray has only played during the Vegas shows, and he's back with Zach Brown. So there's a question here. Somebody asked me to ask you. I can answer it. Ray is on the percussion chair for Chicago. And the combination between Ray on percussion, Wally on drums, and Neil on vocals, and Brent Simmons, the new bass player, Chicago's going to go on, man. If all of a sudden all you guys were left, well after the years, Chicago will endure. It's not the players that make Chicago. It's the music that makes Chicago. And Chicago is only going to hire the players that can best represent Chicago. So in the last 45 seconds, Mr. Donell, thank you for accepting my invitation. I've been a fan of yours. I reached out to you in January. I thought maybe we'd be too early, but it worked out. 4 months later, we got you on the show. Everybody, please go to neildonell.com. That's neildonell.com for everything Neil. Stock him, pay for his music, don't steal music, and see him on the road with ChicagoTheBand.com, and coming to a venue near you. And they're teaming up this time around with REO Speedwagon. Interesting. Combination. So with that said, guys, enjoy the guys and keep the life and the music of Chicago alive in your heart. Thank you so much, Neil, for being part of my show, being part of the network. My name is Jackie Bertoni. The show is Jackie's Groove, and it's Intertalk Media. Connect to all things music. Thank you, Neil Donell. Peace through music, and we'll see you down the road. I promise you. All my love, brother.
Thank you, Jackie.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.